The island of Great Britain, known for its tempestuous weather, scones and jam, and one of the classic long-distance cycle rides, Land's End to John O'Groats. It's a route I've always wanted to ride, starting on the rugged coast of southwest England, climbing through the mountains of Wales, and finishing all the way up in the spectacular Scottish Highlands.
Those climbs, those descents. It makes you fall in love with cycling all over again.
2 weeks to escape London and discover some of Britain's most glorious landscapes, come rain, come shine.
The other amazing phenomenon that results from these kinds of showers is a rainbow.
To see the history and culture of this great island from furthest south to furthest north, no matter where the roads might take me.
Night mode activated. Sunset in the Cambrians. It's beautiful, it's getting dark.
So in April of 2025, I set out to ride from Land's End to John O'Groats, 1,700 kilometres and 17 days through the very best of Great Britain. Bright and early one morning in April, my brother and I set out on the 6 a.m. train from London to Penzance, following the coast all the way down to the southwest tip of England, a stark and windy place known simply as Land's End.
Hello, spring has sprung, the days are getting longer, and today we are at the southwest corner of England at Land's End on a very blustery day, about to start a very special adventure. Over the next 2 weeks, we will be cycling 1,700 kilometres to the very northeast corner of Scotland, a place called John O'Groats. It's been a couple of months in the making, and it's time to finally get going.
Land's End and John O'Groats are two of Britain's geographical extremes, and between them runs one of the UK's classic cycling routes, known simply as Le Jog. The traditional route almost entirely avoids Wales, which has some of Britain's best cycling. So I designed a new route, one that would take me from the start in southwest England, right through the heart of Wales, and all the way up to the finish line in the far north of Scotland. It would be a challenging route through some of the most mountainous parts of Britain, covering 1,700 kilometres in 17 days with over 19,000 metres of climbing. So to help me out along the way, I'd be joined by friends and family, starting with my younger, much fitter brother, Milo.
I'm at Land's End, and I feel like I'm going to go into a presenter mode. The legs are good. I've had 3 days rest. I'm feeling pretty refreshed. I spent about 2 weeks carb loading for this.
Wind conditions today.
Windy.
Windy it was, and the weather forecast was not looking good. So we quickly said our goodbyes to Land's End and set out east through Cornwall, hoping to get to our hotel before the incoming storm. But we were almost immediately distracted by the idea of lunch in Mousehole, a charming fishing village with a rich history as a hideaway for smugglers and their loot. Here, one food reigned supreme, the Cornish pasty, meat and potatoes stuffed inside a thick crust of pastry. Pasties were originally baked to take down the mines, but they double up as a perfect fuel for hungry cyclists.
Oh, really hot.
While we ate, the weather began to turn. The headwind that we'd been battling all morning became stronger than ever, and by early afternoon, the blue sky had abandoned us.
Made it through Penzance, and now we're on the coastal bike path opposite St Michael's Mount, and we are getting absolutely crushed by this wind. We're right on the exposed coastline of Cornwall. Meant to be a short day, but we're going to be on the bike for hours, I think.
Then came the rain, soaking us through. It was a tough first day to the tour, and by the time we made it to our hotel in Redruth, we were chilled to the bone. It was only day one, and Cornwall had already thrown us our first test. Amazingly, I wouldn't see rain again for the next 11 days, and as we set out on our second morning, heading east towards the cathedral city of Truro, the sky was back to a brilliant blue. Today's mission was to cross the spine of Cornwall, from the south coast to the north, and for much of it we'd be riding the Camel Trail, a disused railway line that has been converted into a cycling and walking track. We were away from the cars and sheltered from the wind by the forest all around us. The birds sang their spring songs and the Camel River trickled gently by. After the beating we'd received on day one, this was bliss.
I've got a belly full of wine gums. The sun is shining. There's really not much to complain about, so I shan't.
After leaving the Camel Trail, we rode into the town of Tintagel, where a whole ecosystem of gift shops and restaurants has popped up to celebrate Cornwall's most famous export, the legend of King Arthur. According to the myth, King Arthur was born at Tintagel Castle, the remains of which sit on a rocky headland just below the town. The castle may once have been the seat of mighty King Arthur, but today it stands in ruins, just like us, worn down by the ferocious winds of Cornwall.
My legs are pretty kicked today.
We had made good progress over the first couple of days, and we're starting day 3 at a quaint bed and breakfast overlooking the north coast of Cornwall, home to an endless series of coves and beaches and small fishing towns with boats at harbour. But as beautiful as the coastline looked beneath the April sun, once again we were riding straight into a headwind.
It is our third absurdly windy day in Cornwall. It just won't let up. Both me and Milo are hurting. I think I underestimated how difficult the start of this ride would be.
As we crossed from Cornwall and into Devon, my legs turned to jelly, and I was now beginning to doubt my ability to make it all the way to Scotland. Luckily, we had help on the way.
My name is Gabriele. Everyone calls me Gabbo. I came from London last night. This morning I cycled along the Tarka Trail. I made some research. This is a very old trail. So nice. You'll see a lot of bridges here, a lot of caves.
Gabbo is an old friend of mine who'd snuck away from London for the weekend to lend us a hand against the wind. We had found him at the entrance to the Tarka Trail, another old railway line that is now the UK's longest car-free cycle path. We'd be following it for about 20 kilometres until Bideford, a port town on the banks of the River Torridge, where we arrived just in time for the Saturday morning food market.
What do you got, bro? You have a Polish kielbasa with sauerkraut, a load of mustard, excuse my French, a bunch of onions and some ketchup, and it is divine. Sublime almost.
What do you think of this town, Bideford?
I think Bideford has a good bit of food.
With our bellies full of kielbasa, we continued east, and we could soon see the hills of Exmoor National Park rising ahead of us. It was a stunning bit of riding. Largely empty of people and development, Exmoor is known for its dark skies and stargazing, and the roads over the moors were nearly deserted. Eventually we made it to the ever-so-romantic Exmoor Forest Inn, nestled in a sunlit valley in the heart of the national park. It had all the quiet charm of a classic countryside pub, and dinner was all sourced off their own farm. 3 cannons of lamb and 3 apple crumbles evaporated into our empty stomachs, and before the famous Exmoor stars had even taken to the sky, we were fast asleep.
I've only got today left. You have 13 days left. So I'm feeling quite worried about you, Oscar. You got a lot of hills ahead, but I only got today.
I mean, this is my second day, so I can't complain. But
If you were to complain.
if I was to complain, my leg hurts, my lower back hurts. For some reason, my shoulder hurts, and I'm not getting any backpacks. My calves.
An absolutely glorious start to day 4. Woke up this morning with quite a lot of fatigue in the legs, and so I was a bit worried. And today is another hilly one, but with the added bonus that the wind has finally dropped down, which makes everything that much easier. Unfortunately, one bad bit of news is that this is the last day that I'm cycling with Milo and with Gabo. They're both going back to London while I continue northwards through Wales.
Gabo and Milo had been great company and would be sorely missed for the rest of the ride. But there was little time to dwell on that now because we finally had some proper descending to do. Long, sweeping roads through the edge of Exmoor National Park.
This riding is so much fun through Exmoor. So many good little wiggly roads and fast descents. It's great.
Early afternoon, we rolled into the town of Weston-super-Mare, situated on the English side of the Bristol Channel and the end of my first leg through England. It had been a brilliant but grueling first 4 days, and with just 400 kilometres ridden, I was already exhausted. Over tea and cakes, I said goodbye to Gabo and Milo and began my journey across the Bristol Channel to Cardiff, where my adventure would continue the next day, north through the mountains of Wales. Wales is not usually included in the classic Land's End to John O'Groats route, but it is one of my favourite places to cycle, home to 3 great mountain ranges, a fiendishly difficult language, and some of the best roads in Britain. But to get there, I first had to find a way to cross the Bristol Channel from Weston-super-Mare to Cardiff. In my dream version of this trip, I would have found someone with a boat to pilot me across the channel's turbulent waters. Unfortunately, no such person existed, and instead I had to catch the train.
We have made it to Wales, and I thought I'd be cycling solo for the next few days, but Mum has surprised me and decided to tag along for this morning. Say hi, Mum.
Hi there.
That's Mum. We got the train to Cardiff this morning from Bristol and stopped off at the Bike Lock Cafe, run by a lovely guy called Tom. Mum is well fueled on her porridge. I had an incredible fish finger sandwich, and now we're cycling about 110 kilometres to the town of Wales, and I'll be cycling Wales for the next 3 or 4 days.
Our route out of Cardiff followed the River Taff north along the Taff Trail, which runs 90 kilometres to the town of Brecon. It was another glorious morning for cycling, with the daffodils in full bloom and the sky completely cloudless above us. Now that the wind had dropped, I couldn't have asked for better conditions. But truth be told, it was unseasonably warm and dry, and that warm weather was causing all sorts of weirdness.
There is something you don't expect to see in April in the UK. A big wildfire burning on the hills above the town of Pontypridd.
This would not be the only wildfire I'd encounter on my tour. Across England, Wales and Scotland, the warm and dry weather had turned plants to tinder. April 2025 set a new record for the amount of land burned by wildfires in Britain, a visible reminder of our changing climate. As the sun above us baked the land, Mum and I continued north for about 50 kilometres until we reached the town of Merthyr Tydfil, once home to Wales's booming iron and coal industries, and where the first ever steam train ran in the early 1800s. Much of our route followed the abandoned train lines that had once served those industries, long since shuttered in post-industrial Britain. In Merthyr, Mum and I parted ways, she back towards Cardiff and me north into the increasingly hilly landscape of southern Wales.
And so we continue upwards, now on my own, solo for the next 5 days, up into the Brecon Beacons and north for another 300 kilometres through Wales.
By a mountain river, there I lay my head. Slept below the tree line, for a bed. And the sky.
Just finished the big climb of the day over the Brecon Beacons and now descending fast to Builth Wells. Just saw my first Welsh sheeps, many of them looking heavily pregnant. It is April, so I assume lambing season is around the corner for many of them. Today's been a lot of fun, a huge amount of fun. Those climbs, those descents, it makes you fall in love with cycling all over again.
And the day was about to get even better.
Took a bath.
Well, if it isn't Dad. Well, I guess that's Oscar. Well met.
Well met, sir.
On the road to Builth Wells.
Amazing. I've topped and tailed this day with both my parents. Mum cycling out with me this morning, and then Dad's just rocked up on his motorbike. I think we're going to go get dinner together in Builth Wells. I imagine he's had an amazing day of riding as well. Just perfect. Almost there, 123 kilometres cycled now. Just a short while to go.
With the sun setting, I made it to Builth Wells, just in time for dinner with Dad. Built on the banks of the River Wye, the town is famous for its farm shows and livestock auctions, and was a popular spa town in the Victorian era. It had been a great day of riding, and I'd barely even scratched the surface of Wales.
Day 6, and just leaving Builth Wells. And if you can't tell by my bleary looking eyes, I'm pretty tired this morning. It was a long old day yesterday. But today's an even bigger day, probably the biggest, on paper at least, of the entire trip. We've got 120 kilometres to go and 2,000 metres of climbing over the Cambrian mountain range.
I was largely following National Cycle Route 8, which runs the length of Wales from south to north. The route does have the occasional bit of gravel riding to test your handling skills, but even in muddy conditions, it's much better than the busy A road that is the alternative. As I continued northward into the Cambrian mountains, the landscape became more and more spectacular. But all was not right in this part of Wales in April, and once more I could see smoke rising.
I'm a bit worried now because just ahead of me is a huge friggin' wildfire, and I don't really know what to do at this point. I'm really hoping it doesn't block my road. Yeah, we'll try not to do anything too stupid here, but it's a bit worrying to see the Welsh countryside up in flames in the middle of April.
The smoke could be seen across the horizon, and I was cycling straight towards it. As I got near, I flagged down a car going the opposite direction to check whether the road was safe to pass. I did not want to be stuck between smoke and fire with nothing to protect me but my bicycle. The driver assured me that the road was safe, and so I continued upwards, ever higher into the Cambrian mountains. With golden hour approaching, I made it to Machynlleth, the ancient capital of Wales. I'd already cycled more than 100 kilometres, and if I'd been sensible, I would have stopped there and joined the locals in one of the town's busy pubs. But I had another 30 kilometres still to go, over one last set of mountains. I'd completely misjudged the timing, and when I'd finally made it to the top of the last, ridiculously steep climb, night was falling, and I was still a long way from bed.
Night mode activated.
Sunset in the Cambrians. It's beautiful. It's getting dark. No more filming now. Just straight on to Barmouth. Just in time for bed, hopefully.
It is the start of day 7 and the beginning of the second week of the cycle, and today cycling 95 kilometres from Barmouth to Ruthin and taking on Wales's third great mountain range. We've just entered the Snowdonia National Park, but first the day starts with a 30-kilometre cycle along the beautiful western coast of northern Wales.
The west coast of Wales is normally known for being one of the wettest places in Britain. But on a day like today, this underappreciated coastline has few rivals, and I was enjoying every bit of it. I'd woken up late after my long evening in the Cambrians and was in desperate need of a coffee, which I found in a lovely little cafe opposite the ruins of Harlech Castle, built in the 13th century for a grand total of £8,200. From Harlech Castle, I turned away from the coast and up towards Snowdonia. Pinned between the mountains on one side and the River Druid on the other, it was a joyful morning of riding, even as the land beneath my tyres grew progressively steeper and steeper.
I've been climbing for almost 10 kilometres now, up from the coast through this most special of landscapes. It really is quite something, Snowdonia National Park.
Even though centuries of deforestation and grazing have stripped Snowdonia of its trees, I was enthralled by this landscape. The road beneath me was some of the best surfaced of the whole trip and seemed to serve no purpose other than to be ridiculously scenic, used by cyclists, motorbikes, and drivers alike for the sheer joy of it. After battling one last set of rolling hills, I made it to the town of Ruthin, where I'd be spending the night at Ruthin Castle, its grounds filled with beautiful gardens and strutting peacocks, eager to show off their colourful plumes. This was my last full day of riding in Wales, and despite the long days, brutal elevation, and a couple of scares with forest fires, it had been a delight. The next day I'd be back in England, trading the wilds of Wales for the busy suburbs of Liverpool.
It is midway through day 8 of the cycle ride, and I've just made the crossing out of Wales and back into England. Wales was tough this morning. There was a few last big hills to get over that really pushed me to my limits. Ended up walking the bike for a couple of little bits of it. But yeah, now back in England and skirting around Liverpool. First stop on the way is Chester, and finish tonight in Chorley, 112 kilometres in all.
The next 2 days passed in a blur of heavy industry, Amazon warehouses, and well-riveted bridges. I treated myself to a couple of bacon butties to keep me going, and in Preston found half the city queuing for jacket potatoes at the Spud Bros, not yet open but taking pre-orders at 9 AM, as well as a statue of Wallace and Gromit dedicated to its creator and Preston native Nick Park. I'd enjoyed my time cycling alone, but after spending more time than is healthy chatting to myself and my camera, I was ready for some company. And in Kendal, in the foothills of the Lake District, I met my old school friend Richard, who was ready to join me on the last leg through Scotland and all the way to John O'Groats.
Would you like to read Master and Commander by Patrick O'Brien?
Do you want me to take it?
It is the start of day 10, and look who we have with me. It's Richard Deane. First stop is Lake Windermere, the largest lake in England, 10 miles long, and famously and unfortunately polluted with raw sewage by the local utility company.
Raw sewage aside, Richard and I had a relaxed first morning, dodging the Saturday traffic and making stops at Lake Windermere and Rydal Hall, once a haunt of the poet William Wordsworth. And after a grand total of 20 kilometres, we found the Great North Pie Company, where we had a butter pie with gravy and mushy peas, so densely calorific that we didn't need to eat again for the rest of the day. As we moved away from Lake Windermere, things began to quieten down, and we found ourselves alone but for the landscapes that have inspired so many writers, poets, and artists.
I want to stop basically the entire time to film various bits, but quite rightly Richard is getting annoyed at me for spending way too much time filming. But it is just such an incredible landscape. And what a way to leave England behind. Just a few tens of kilometres north of here, we will cross the border into Scotland and really into the last week of riding to get up to John O'Groats.
The riding that day was the best I'd had in all of England, rivalled only by the mountains of Wales. Fueled by pie and with Richard as company, I felt like we were in a good place. 800 kilometres to go to finish the trip, but with some of the toughest riding still to come.
As the light fades on day 10 of the cycle ride, so too does the light fade on England and our time here. We are 5 kilometres now from the border with Scotland, from where our journey continues. It's been a fab day in the Lake District, and who can forget about that pie? Oh, the pie.
Haunts me still.
Super fuel. Been a great day riding, and a pleasure to have Richard aboard.
King Robert Bruce from foes pursuant. It's one of 3 caves in which Robert the Bruce may have hidden. These guys reckon it's the one.
It's a nice cave.
Yeah, good place to hide out.
Good ceiling height. You could rent this for about 900 quid a month in London.
That's a satisfying.
Very nice.
Yeah.
We'd made it at last to Scotland, the last country to tackle on our ride and the most rugged section of the trip. Our day started out in Gretna Green, which in the 18th century was like the Las Vegas of Britain, just over the border into Scotland and with much looser marriage laws than England to the south. Crossing the border, the weather seemed to have turned on us. It was suddenly much colder, and above us hung big fat clouds that looked ready to drop a week's worth of rain. But the cool weather also meant we wouldn't have to worry about Scotland's most aggressive inhabitant, the midges, which loved to nibble on the exposed skin of visitors to Scotland in the summer months. When it did finally start raining, we found food and shelter at the Moffat Farmers Market, which was selling fine cheeses, whiskies, and traditional Scottish pizzas.
Oh god.
Yes, cheesy.
Filthy.
Cheesy. First taste of proper Italian Scottish pizza. Just south of Glasgow, we met the River Clyde, where Richard decided it was time to tap into his Scottish roots by singing an old folk ballad.
This is a song about parents and their iron fist, and it's called The Drowned Lovers. Willie sits in his stable door and he's combing his coal-black steed, for he's doubting on fair Margaret's love and his heart began to bleed. Give corn unto my horse, mother, and meat to my man John, and I'll await fair Margaret's bower before the night comes on. Oh, stay at home with me, dear Willie, oh, stay at home with me, and the very best cock in all the roost.
With Richard's pretty little ditty stuck in my head, we made it the final few kilometres to Hamilton, a town just south of Glasgow. It was late and little was open except a truly excellent Thai restaurant called Pad Thai, whose owner Liam had learned to become a chef during the COVID lockdowns. We went to bed with bellies full, legs replenished and spirits high, after a good first foray into Scotland. Scotland is home to almost 6 million people, 1/10 of whom live in the country's largest city, Glasgow. Glasgow is the gateway to the lochs and the Highlands, and some of the most beautiful landscapes Britain has to offer. It is a city of big characters and even bigger pastries.
Well, yeah, mainly, most of it.
After breakfast at Outlier, we cut northwest out of Glasgow, following the Clyde and Forth Canal path towards Loch Lomond, the largest lake in Great Britain. The weather was behaving, the cherry blossoms were out in full force, and as we made it to the banks of Loch Lomond, it was shaping up to be another great day for cycling. Loch Lomond was formed by glaciers between 10 and 20,000 years ago, and marks the start of the Highlands, the mountainous landscape that runs right to the top of Scotland. The lake has 23 main islands, including one that is home to a colony of wallabies that were introduced from Australia by a speedboat racing aristocrat in the 1940s. Its banks have inspired songs, books and films, and it's easy to see why.
This is so absurdly lovely, cycling along the west coast of Loch Lomond. Such a good day for it. Beautiful roads, beautiful loch, beautiful landscape. I'm having such a good time here.
At the far end of Loch Lomond, we stopped for a drink at the Drover's Inn, built in the early 1700s and filled with the taxidermy and relics of the clans that once ruled this area. We had now well and truly passed into the Highlands, and when we awoke the next morning, it was to heavy drizzle and views of the mountains freshly crowned in snow.
It's a really rainy start to day 13. We are in full waterproof today. We're going to cycle about 10 kilometres now, get some breakfast, and then hopefully sit out the worst of the weather. Right now, it is 4 degrees, raining, quite windy, and just a little bit cold. But hey, it's Scotland. Beautiful, beautiful Scotland. What do you expect?
We were on our way to Glencoe and the start of a particularly mountainous section of the route, and the weather did not look promising. It was cold and wet, and we started off feeling quite miserable. Richard was less than impressed with my request to film the scenery in the rain, and powered ahead to what would be a transformative breakfast.
How's the kind of general weather situation today?
It's brightening up.
You're in such a good mood since breakfast.
Yeah, since food arrived.
Richard was right, it was brightening up, and once we'd had our fill of black pudding and made it back outside, the sun was beginning to break through the clouds. We were planning to ride 100 kilometres right through Glencoe, the mountainous heart of Scotland. In good weather, Glencoe is one of the most gorgeous places on earth, sculpted over millions of years by glaciers, wind, rain, and the footfall of countless armies marching to battle. In bad weather, it can be brutal, the landscape lost to the elements. When I woke up to rain that morning, I prepared for the worst, but Scotland was about to give us its best.
And the weather's cleared! It is once again sunny as we continue through the Highlands towards Glencoe now. The mist and the clouds still clinging to the high peaks, but down here in the valley, it's absolutely gorgeous. What a day to be here. Really could not have asked for better.
This is my favourite place. Yeah, just incredible. It's always sunny in Scotland. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
perfect crossing through Glencoe. We have made it down to the west coast of Scotland and are fast approaching Fort William. It's been a wonderful day. Really, really wonderful day. I can't quite believe I've cycled all the way to Fort William from Cornwall. Approaching, I think, about 1,400 kilometres now. And this is the furthest north I've ever been in the UK. From tomorrow onwards, it's into the great unknown.
It was a beautiful evening in Fort William as the sun set over the west coast of Scotland. But when we awoke, a familiar chill had returned. And as was now tradition, we responded in the only way we knew how, by finding the best bakery in town.
This is the true cyclist breakfast, chocolate eclair.
We've done
with cream.
200 metres.
Fort William sits on the west coast of Scotland at the base of Ben Nevis, the UK's tallest mountain. It is at one end of the Great Glen, a nearly 100-kilometre geological fissure that runs diagonally across Scotland, from Fort William all the way to Inverness. Through the middle of the glen runs the Caledonian Canal, which connects two of Scotland's great lochs, Loch Lomond and Loch Ness, home to the eponymous monster. And running beside the lochs is the Great Glen Way, a walking route that doubles as a car-free cycle path for almost 100 kilometres. The cycling felt the most remote of any I'd done all trip, and we barely met anyone all day. It was gorgeous, lonely riding, but as we climbed the hills above Loch Ness, I was starting to feel the wear and tear of the last 2 weeks on the bike.
I cannot tell you how sore my bum is today. It's like sitting on a couple of drawing pins, just stuck straight into my butt cheeks. Day 14, the day things started to fall apart.
By the time that me and my very sore bottom made it to the northeastern tip of Loch Ness, the weather had turned to rain again, and I was feeling exceptionally jealous of the Highland cows and their shaggy fur. We entered Inverness soaked, cold and hungry after a tough day on the bikes, but somehow still in good spirits.
He can still jump.
He can still jump.
Time for bed and shower and bath and food.
But don't forget food. We're not... Food.
After 15 days on the bike, I was keen for distraction. So after making myself feel very sick on the spinning disc in a playground, we paid a visit to the Glenmorangie distillery, which has been brewing and distilling alcohol of some form or another since the early 1700s, and is most famous for its whiskey. Dressed in our smelly cycling clothes, we were out of place amongst the well-heeled clientele of the distillery, so we picked up a couple of tasting bottles to celebrate at the finish line, and hurried on north. We were just a couple of days from the finish now, and had moved into a more coastal zone, crossing the long bridge over the Donnoch Firth. Overhead, the weather couldn't quite decide what to do, and kept flitting between heavy rain and beautiful spells of sunshine that would just about dry us out before we were soaked once more.
We're now moving into a uniquely British form of weather known as April showers, where it can be sunny one minute, rainy the next, sunny again, rainy again, really, really wet, and really, really cold. However, the other amazing phenomenon that results from these kinds of showers is a rainbow. And we're cycling now towards a beautiful rainbow, and it is really quite superb. Scotland welcoming us to the north.
Before starting this trip, I didn't have high expectations for this part of Scotland. I'd assumed once we were through Glencoe and past Loch Ness, the best would be behind us. But this northeast corner of the country was fast winning me over. It is jaw-droppingly beautiful, with dramatic weather, magnificent castles, and the kind of long, golden sand beaches that would be world famous if the water was warmer than about 5 degrees centigrade. Sadly, we were fast approaching the end of our trip and had just a couple of days left to ride.
Good morning from day 16, the penultimate day of riding, our last big day on the bikes. Today we're going from Golspie to Thursday, and the first half of our route goes along the absolutely sublime northeast coast of Scotland, which makes up part of the NC 500 trail, or the North Coast 500 mile trail. And on a day like today, when the sun is out, the sea is blue, the clouds are far away on the hills, it is absolutely gorgeous. The beaches up here are really, really stunning. Golden sands stretching out as far as the eye can see.
The sea was too cold to swim in this early in the year, but still enticing enough for a bracing dip, our toes turning numb in the waters of the North Sea. On the horizon we could see the offshore wind turbines standing like sentinels, sending clean power back to land. And when we got back on our bikes, inland was proving equally lovely, a thick carpet of yellow gorse flower coating the rolling hills. Richard had walked a section of this route a few years earlier and knew of a quaint little restaurant called the River Bothy, located in a valley at the bottom of one particularly steep hill. It's the kind of cosy place that once you've sat down, you never really want to leave.
Scones are the lifeblood of this trip.
Yeah.
It's fueled.
Every time we find a scone, it makes Oscar infinitely happy.
And it's just a much better day if you have a scone involved.
And what a scone. And 5 times zoom on the sign, it's the River Bothy.
After one last set of climbs, we moved into a particularly austere and sparsely populated stretch of Scotland called the Flow Country, also known as Europe's largest boggy peatland. The landscape seemed drained of colour and was tugging at my last reserves of energy. In moments like this, I was very glad to have the company of Richard, constantly chipper and revelling in the madness that inevitably appears on any long-distance cycle.
Together forever with you. And don't you know I would through heaven and earth to be together forever with you. Oh, with me.
At last we made it to Thurso, the most northerly town on the British mainland, deserted apart from the local chip shop, which seemed to be hosting the entire town. So we did what any good Thursday night would do in our situation. We bought a huge plate of fish and chips and some macaroni and cheese, and took it down to the beach for our final dinner of the trip. The finish line was now just 30 kilometres away, almost within reach.
It is the morning of day 17 and the final push to the finish line. Just 30 kilometres to go now to John O'Groats. And then we'll be done with this magnificent adventure along the entire length of Great Britain. I'm going to be very happy to be done. My body's in a bit of a physical mess right now. I can feel the exhaustion of 17 days on the bike rapidly creeping up.
Truth be told, this ride had been much harder than I'd expected, and I was ready for a good long rest. But first we had to make it to the finish line. As I pushed myself through the last 30 kilometres, my mind wandered to all that I'd experienced. Over the past 17 days, I'd cycled more than 1,700 kilometres and climbed almost 20,000 metres through some of the most beautiful parts of Great Britain. I'd been joined by some of my favourite people as I'd been pushed to my limits by the winds of Cornwall, found myself almost trapped by Welsh wildfires, and eaten my weight in pastries. Our crossing of the snow-capped mountain passes of Glencoe is up there with some of the best riding I've ever had. Living in London, it is far too easy to forget about Britain's natural places, but this trip had reminded me of the wonders of the island I call home. Now the finish line at John O'Groats was calling to me, the northeastern shore of Scotland, and the end of our grand tour. 30 more kilometres to call this trip complete.
I did.